Hi, I'm David Johnson, and this is Verse by Verse. Have you ever made a dumb mistake? One of those situations where you look back and think, that was stupid, why did I do that? If you've never been guilty of making that kind of mistake, then you may want to tune out now, because I want to share some thoughts with people like myself, people who've had to recognize that sometimes we've really been foolish. Some of those mistakes can be funny or insignificant, and many of us could probably tell embarrassing stories about ourselves and the poor decisions we've sometimes made. But at other times, the stories aren't funny, and we may have made foolish mistakes that altered the entire course of our lives, or even the lives of others. And have you noticed that when we make one of those big mistakes, we're usually convinced that we're really doing the right thing? For example, Stephen Covey, in his best-selling book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, explained the difference between being efficient and being effective. The most efficient way to address a problem may not be the most effective way. In our determination to be efficient, we may trample all over the concerns of others. Hindsight may show us we were wrong, but hindsight can't repair the damage we caused because we lack the wisdom or the character to make the right choices. None of us are able to get it right all the time, but is there any way we could at least gain the wisdom to make better decisions more often? Well, that depends upon what kind of wisdom we're seeking. In the Epistle of James, the Bible talks about two kinds of wisdom: the wisdom of this world and the wisdom that comes from God. The wisdom of the world can make you physically successful for a while, but worldly wisdom is self-centered and often ends up producing a great deal of damage, especially in our relationships with others. What may seem wise today can prove to be foolish tomorrow. We can be totally convinced we're doing the right thing to accomplish our goals, only to be blindsided by the consequences we fail to anticipate. Our world is full of advisors who can give us that kind of wisdom. On the other hand, if we want the other kind of wisdom, the godly wisdom that's described as genuine and peaceable and produces good results, there is a simple, clear, two-step process that can lead us down a different path. The instructions are found in the book of Psalms, in Psalm 111, verse 10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all those who do his commandments. The word fear in this passage isn't talking about some kind of terror or frightening experience we want to avoid. It refers to an attitude of awe and deep respect when we think about God. Newer Bible translations use words like honor and reverence toward God. What does that have to do with gaining wisdom? God doesn't change based upon your attitude or mine. He remains the same. But when we approach him with a humble attitude, whether in prayer or as we study his word, recognizing his greatness and our own shortcomings, it makes us more teachable. Instead of asking him for wisdom so we can accomplish whatever it is we want, we're asking him to help us understand what he wants. The second part of his instruction tells us that God does not simply give us an infusion of wisdom. We don't wake up one day having more wisdom than we ever had before. Wisdom is learned over time as we're living life by a different standard. By doing what God says, by humbly submitting to his instructions, even if we don't understand how they can work in a world that ignores and denies God, we learn by experience that his way produces good results. God's commandments are actually based upon God's own wisdom. As we align our thoughts, our hopes, and our actions with his instructions, we come to see the overriding wisdom of his way. As we face new decisions, instead of first considering what outcomes we want, we humbly seek to understand what God wants and make sure that whatever we choose to do, it is consistent with the way he instructs us to live. If we can do that, we will find that we have a source of wisdom that will both save us from making our own foolish mistakes and lead us in a way that produces better results than we could have ever imagined, not only for ourselves, but also for those who mean the most to us. I don't need any more embarrassing stories about my foolish choices. How about you?
Verse by Verse is a Life, Hope, and Truth podcast. Check out the show notes to find more free content, like videos, articles, and booklets in our Learning Center.